I started my journey as a journalist. In my undergrad, I did journalism. Right after college, I did some investigative reporting on how social media was misused for creating riots and organizing violence online. I also focused later on how the algorithms used on social media. These are called the recommender system algorithms, or how AI is used to, curate content for your timelines, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or YouTube. So all the content that you see, the decisions for showing that content to you as a consumer are not taken by a human being. They're taken by artificial intelligence models. And those models are optimized for reach rather than providing, you with content uh, that makes you grow as a person or that helps you with your education or your own personal growth. It is more geared towards uh, getting you to stay on in front of the screen for a larger amount of time. So I focused on that and how such algorithms, you know, uh, promote content that is more divisive, because that type of content is more viral, goes more viral, and increases engagement. And later on, then I worked as a education counselor for a year, and then I specifically focused on content moderation, on AI policy, on governance of emerging technologies at a think tank and at a policy think tank in India, in New Delhi. Now I'm studying the social science of the internet. I'm studying the social and the political impact of emerging technologies such as social media, such as digital public infrastructure in India, such as AI. I'm studying those issues right now in Oxford Internet Institute at the University of Oxford.
Nice, nice. And that's very interesting. Maybe 10 years ago, we wouldn't have a master's program in what you're essentially studying. And so you're seeing this proliferation of artificial intelligence, not just in terms of in the market, but also in terms of educational degrees. So how did you come across it? What was the fascinating, or what was the allure of doing this degree to you,
Right.
especially from Oxford, which is quite amazing as a university itself?
Right. So, as I already mentioned, I had investigated the role of social media and how it was being abused and misused for, uh, for instigating violence and organizing violence. Simultaneously, I'm also from Kashmir, so we'd also faced one of the longest internet shutdowns that has ever taken place in a democracy. So that's what motivated me to, apply to this course and, take this education from here.
That's that's quite amazing. And actually, um, internet's being misused so often within Indian, at least Indian regulations or Indian political system. It's also a massive landscape now. The global landscape is that PwC is saying that it's about $15.7 trillion will be added to the economies, local economies in the world by 2030. It'll boost local economies. It's going to have a major impact on India itself. It'll add some 1.2 to $1.5 trillion to the economy. So it is a vastly evolving sector. And but I can see its implication or usage within, let's say, companies which are towards software, or more tech-based organizations. But how does this rise of artificial intelligence impact social sectors like education? And what do you think is going to be the impact? And so the question that I want to sort of understand is the hype true? Will it completely transform every sector that it sort of touches?
Right. It is true that it's going to transform everything. Uh, that that was true for every technology that we've had. That is true for, so we're currently connected through Zoom. You're in front of a laptop, I'm in front of a laptop. So all the technologies that have been introduced so far have impacted, have transformed our existing sectors to a large extent, whether it's education, healthcare, or any other sector. But there is a lot of hype as well in terms of how people say that artificial intelligence or the more advanced versions, such as what we call the artificial general intelligence, where an artificial model, AI model will have its own sentience. And how some people, a lot of people talk about, especially people like Elon Musk or people who own these companies, they fearmonger. They say that it's going to take over the world. It's going to, you're going to lose your jobs, and it's going to, some sort of a, there's this Terminator sort of a situation that they describe. But that's not going to happen at all. What artificial intelligence is going to do is help us with tasks, some specific tasks, but no, it's not going to do our job.
Hmm.
It's going to transform our jobs to a large extent. And on the negative side, if we're focusing on the concerns, it can lead to a lot of problems as well. If there's bias, if there if we delegate decision making, crucial decision making to AI models, that can lead to a lot of problems. And where does the accountability lie? What are the questions of ethicality, accountability? These are issues that are concerning,
Hmm.
right? So we have to direct our attention to these issues of accountability, bias, discrimination, rather than fearmonger and say that AI is going to take over the world and we're going to get enslaved by AI. That's simply not true. It's not that advanced, and yeah, I feel that's it.
No, that's a very good point, and I think I've always looked at it as if you can't use generative AI, then it will be like you will become more and more, you'll find it harder to, let's say, find jobs or be able to get gainful employment. And I think it's more related to the systematic sort of integration of AI within, within education to innovate it, not just the teaching aspect, but the learning aspect of it. And we have, I mean, international organizations like UNESCO, for example, also like have been talking about this for a while. There's been the Beijing consensus also for this. There is at a very high level policy being thought of that needs to be brought down to, let's say, local economies. So there is a lot of scope for it, and I think, I mean, education systems will have to develop certain levels of regulatory frameworks so that AI tools are safe, they are age appropriate, and they're also pedagogically relevant. Like, you can't just have an AI tool within an education system. It's not actually helping teachers with like, creating new sort of pedagogies or new learning techniques, etc. So I think there is a lot of scope for it. I definitely agree with you that there is a lot of fear mongering around it. And I think that transfers from media to parents and students, and then on to, let's say, career counselors and educators. And then they are ill equipped to answer those questions because maybe they don't understand truly the scale of artificial intelligence. So I just wanted to also very quickly go over a few things that, get thrown around a lot. Like, what is generative AI? What is large language models? Not everyone will go on online and understand it once you read it. But if you had to explain it, imagine I'm I'm from fifth grade. If you had to explain a large language model to me, how would you sort of try to do that?
Sometimes even I ask myself if I know what a large language model is, to be honest. But if I have to explain it to a 5-year-old kid, I would say it's a machine that is there, and we feed it large amounts of text. So, for example, ChatGPT was fed text from all over the internet. They scraped websites, they scraped, for example, Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, and all the text was fed into this machine. And now, what this machine is doing is that it's sort of connecting. When we ask it a question, when we send it a prompt, it recalls these pieces of text that it has been already fed, and gives us an answer. Now that answer is not thought about, like it's not a thought process that is in front of us. So right now I'm articulating certain points to you. This is something that I'm thinking about, but that machine is not thinking those texts and then giving us the answers. It's just connecting those pieces of text that it already has in a meaningful way, which has correct grammar, which has correct syntax. But it does not necessarily mean that the machine understands what it's saying, what it's presenting to us. It's just that it produces text that is let's say legible, that makes sense. right? Because its syntax is good, its grammar is good, and it has been sourced from texts which is produced by humans like me and you. So that is what a generative AI model does. It's a large language model because it has been made using large amounts of text from across the internet. So
Uh,
that's how I explain it.
no, that's a very fair way to sort of go about it. I think a lot of us, especially when we're sending it, I mean, this is me trying to understand prompt engineering and
Hmm.
going to chat GPT. That was and how social media plays a big role in even and how we interpret how to use a software like chat GPT. I've gone in and I've seen this random reel saying that you have to say thank you, please to your large language models, to your chat GPTs, and it'll give you better responses. And
Right.
I like, okay, I don't believe this, but let me try this out. I don't know. Maybe it works.
Right.
Uh, tried it for an entire week. In fact, I got, I think, worse responses. Uh, so there is no exact way of like there is no tool book, there is no handbook of this is how you use ChatGPT, this is how you use generative AI. Keeping that in mind, how would like a student, and I'm asking this question because we both worked as independent counselors, and if ChatGPT existed, we would have gone through I don't know how many amounts of essays that would have been written by ChatGPT without the students actually realizing what the sort of downfall of that is. But how do you, I mean, correctly is like, adding a value statement to it, but how would you use a generative AI like a ChatGPT um, for better career and college exploration as a student?
If I am a student, which I am right now, I'll tell you how I used it for my own summatives, and how I am currently using it for my thesis. I hope my thesis does not get rejected because of what I say here. But see, even Oxford University or all the other Russell Group universities, they don't have very specific, to the point guidelines regarding the use of AI tools for your thesis and all of your summatives or any of your academic work. As a student, how I approach large language models or generative AI is that it is again giving me tools to automate some of my mundane or small tasks, which will like help me save time for my larger job, which is intellectual rigor, which is intellectual work, creating some research, some valuable research that will add to the body of knowledge that I'm working towards. So let's say, for example, what I use AI is for. I'll give it a large text and ask it to summarize the points for me, because I know that maybe that text is not exactly what I'm looking for, but let's see what it says. Like, it's substituting for the skim through, right? If there's a PDF of 30 pages and I want to skim through it, it will take me like half an hour or 1 hour to skim through it. But if I throw it into, let's say, Cloud or ChatGPT, it will give me a broad summary of all the points that there is. So just to give me that skeleton of that text. Then there are grammar checks, spell corrections. These small tasks I use ChatGPT for. But I will never ask a question like, let's say, what are the political implications of online hate speech? I will never ask that question because, first of all, it's prone to hallucinations. And also it will give me long answers, which maybe it has sourced from the texts that are fed into that model, and it's already there on the internet. And sometimes it just creates citations, it just creates sources that are just not there. Even in I had a course in statistics, and I tried to give it some questions, the practice sums that I was doing for statistics and probabilities, and I'm talking about ChatGPT, and it failed to make calculations, simple plus and minus calculations. They were simply wrong. And then when I prompted it, oh, this is wrong. The actual sum is this. It said sorry. Like, as a student, because I was skeptical because I study this. As a student who is in, like, say, sixth or seventh grade, or let's say high school, who thinks that ChatGPT, oh, it's AI, everything is automated, it's machine learning, deep learning, and all these terms, they might get misled because of such tools. So there has to be very careful integration of such tools within our education system, that is for sure. And if it's kids, then digital literacy courses, we don't have any digital literacy courses in anywhere in India at least. They have to talk about AI as well. It's quite challenging because AI has why the hype around AI is also because maybe it has exponentially grown over the last few months. I mean, every month we have a new model. We just had ChatGPT 4.0, and it has new, new use cases. Everything is evolving at such a rate that people are getting skeptical. Some people think that it will revolutionize everything. Some people think that it will break everything. So I think the rate of evolution and the rate of development of such models has is because is the reason why this is happening, this hype is happening. But yeah, as a student, I think we everyone has to be very careful in, like, because learning is a very slow process. Pedagogically, learning is a very slow process, and you have to learn slowly. You have to build your skills from the scratch. So there's no shortcut in for learning. So we have to keep that in mind while we're using such tools, I guess.
And that's an excellent point that you made. A couple of things that I'd like to pick from that is, firstly, what is hallucination?
Hmm.
Because I experienced that in a very similar light where I was just trying ChatGPT out for the first time. And that's initially what deterred me from getting the pro version, was that it just told me, I asked for citations for certain paragraphs I had written. It completely made up books,
Hmm.
and I was scouring over the internet trying to find these books, thinking I'm the one who can't find it. And so and then I realized, okay, maybe there is a limitation to the model in that regard. Um, and also the fact that learning is a slow process is a very important point, because I think now that I've used a generative AI model for a while, I also use it on a very similar light to what you do. Just sort of organizational tasks or summaries, or giving me a skeleton structure for an essay or a report or something along those lines. But even for that, for it to be correct, or for it to be useful for me, I have to input a lot of prompts into it, so that it understands what I want from it. I have to give it good examples. I have to I have to do a lot of work. So if you don't do that work, I think you will not benefit from using such artificial intelligence tools. And we also tend to overestimate what a technology can do in the short run. We think it can either become the Terminator, like you were saying, or it can like change professions to the level where it's unheard of. And it may happen in the future, but it's not happening in the next 5 to 10 years. So I think that the doom and gloom vision of generative AI, or it's the Elon Musk, it's going to be the best thing on this planet and it's going to change everything and you need to adapt, otherwise you'll sink. I think we just need to give it time, because it's a slow process and we are also learning with it. So
I mean, you have to understand that machines, for all the hype around machines in general or computers in general, you have to understand that machines are dumb. They're only good at doing calculations at a very fast rate. But fundamentally, they do not understand context. They do not understand narrative. They do not understand any of those things that makes us humans and that has enabled us to create such a, advanced civilization. It is context, it is narrative, and it's taking in large amounts of information and knowledge from disparate sources and then creating certain specific outputs. Machines cannot do that. Machines can do calculations at a fast rate. That is the fundamental thing that we have to understand. That is how hallucinations are created as well, right? Machines, they cannot do such tasks that we can do in terms of understanding human emotions, or in terms of understanding narratives, in terms of getting knowledge from different sources and making decisions in a very contextual manner. Then machines just make calculations is what I feel.
so essentially, you're hinting at that it should be human-centered AI development, not so we should be informing AI policy, how to use it, rather than it taking not again, not to put it into Terminator terms, but not to take control, but rather let it sort of ride without us actually keeping it in check and understanding how it's impacting society at large. So I think that's again important points, but I want to bring it back to now that, as students, obviously, sometimes motivation is lacking and you might use GPT software to, help you get a little ahead with your work. But let's say you're a teacher, you know, you've not used a similar kind of model before and it is unique in its own way. How do you use that in a way which is firstly useful to you and safe? And considering the fact that I don't know if you remember, but uh, when you were applying, when a student wants to apply to the US, it was a task to find a list of 15 colleges that he can actually apply to from 4,000. So can ChatGPT help, let's say, career counselors, educators who are providing that support to students to be, again, with the idea that it is human centered, as in they drive the conversation with these softwares and bring out the research. But do you think these sort of softwares can help, let's say, alleviate some of the issues or concerns around research for educators and for career counselors?
Um, Not to be a pessimist here, but I don't think it can make such decisions for you. I mean, even research, I don't think that such tools can do such research, because you have to understand that ChatGPT, Cloud, or any other AI models, large language models that exist right now do are trained on static data sets. So ChatGPT 1 or 2, they were for the longest time they were trained on data that had a freeze date of, I think, 2021 or 22. Nothing after that. So because they're trained on data sets that are static, they won't be able to help you with making decisions when it comes to your students. So, for example, let's say your student has a CGPA of 4 out of 5 or 3 out of 5, and you have to decide on which universities to apply to in the US. But we know that US universities or universities across education institutions across the globe, they keep changing their rules, they keep changing their entry requirements. So if you're applying in 2024 and you're relying on data and analysis that has been done by an LLM model based on data which is like 3 years old, you're going down the wrong path, I think. So it's not just about, having static data sets. I feel every student has their own narrative. They have their own talents, and they have their own, ways of thinking about their careers and how to build their futures. And as a person, as a human counselor, you understand their narratives and their goals, and you accordingly do research for them, and lead them to their destinations and guide them accordingly. But if you're it this becomes like a middleman, right? AI tool becomes like a middleman, and it filters out a lot of results. I have tried it, and I know that I've compared outcomes when I tried an AI tool to shortlist courses for a student. So it left out a lot of good courses, it left out a lot of good universities, because again, it does not have the context. Even if you try to give it a prompt 3 pages long, it will still not get the context of a student. It will still not give you the right outcomes, the right results. So again, I think it will still have to be you as a person, as a human being, to understand the narrative of your student, their goals and their profile, to make decisions for them. But yeah, again, it can help you with smaller tasks, maybe CV building, maybe grammar checks, and maybe some sort of a research at a very low level. At least what we have right now, the AI tools, that their capacity right now is not as advanced and as good as we as humans can, achieve. The level of sophistication that we can achieve is far more ahead.
That's really good. I appreciate that you're putting human thinking and the uniqueness that comes from it at the center of it, and AI tools on the outside. But the real question then is that do we have these platforms or these softwares come into school to even provide support for the smaller support functions, like, let's say, organizing, I don't know, a curriculum or something along those lines, and basic frameworks and support? Do you think it can actually alleviate educators' concerns for maybe a lack of time when they have, let's say, a high ratio of students working with them? They still may have to go back to colleges, but can they actually start that as a or use that as a way to start off certain processes, and at least it gives them maybe a starting point, and then they take that conversation forward with the student within the narrative that the student has, as you were saying.
Yes, I think, see, it's definitely going to save a lot of time. It's just that we have to understand the limitations and the utilities of all the AI models, right? So, ChatGPT, Cloud, the Anthropic model, all these models, we have to understand what are they good at and what are they bad at. Then there are other softwares as well, which I use personally as a researcher. There's Research Rabbit, there's Scholarly, there's Elicit, right? So they're extremely good, right? So for example, these tasks such as I have one seed paper, right? This paper is good and this is going to help me with my research. I put it on Research Rabbit and it will give me all the papers that are relevant to that paper, all the authors that are relevant to that research topic. So that saves me in one click, it saves me like 10 or 15 Google searches, right? That is like 15 and half an hour. So such tools are really good. You can automate such things because AI is good at again calculating and searching for things and relevant keywords and all of those things. So it will definitely help with that. Also, it will help with, let's say, writing and all. When a student is writing an essay, they're writing their own let's say narratives or building their CVs. You can ask them to, okay, do your grammar check, do your spell check, syntax check on this tool, okay, and then bring it to me. So it will save you time in that sense, but I would still, go back to what I already said. I think it should not, if it saves you time, it should not come at the cost of face time with the student. Again, if you save certain time, you should use like that face time that you have now, that time that you save for, enhancing conceptual clarity, working towards positive academic goals, education goals, rather than just saying that, okay, we saved this time and now, because human interaction still helps a student in enhancing their educational goals. So I'd say it will save you a lot of time, but that time should be employed for other things as well, and that face time should be used for some positive goals, I would say.
And that's thank you for sort of summarizing that also. And I guess with this, I also just want to see if you want to answer this question with the because that's the question that we've asked in the podcast is: do we embrace then these technologies, or do we isolate them and continue doing it, and people can use it as and when they reach, or do we embrace it in a way where we are bringing it systematically with keeping ideas like hallucination bias in mind, and maybe like you said, doing some digital literacy programs actually at the ground level to be able to hit it in the right way. Do we embrace it in that way, or do we just embrace it willy-nilly? You can use AI tools, you can do whatever you want with them.
Ratish, we really don't have a choice. We really don't have a choice.
You have to.
US universities or in the job market, everywhere AI is being used to take decisions. Personally, we are using AI whether we like it or not. AI was introduced even before, like we started using AI even before we knew what AI was. When we were using Facebook or we are using LinkedIn, all this, all the algorithms that I talked about in the beginning of our conversation, they were already deciding what we are going to view or not. So AI is here and it's going to stay. But again, we have to embrace it in a very cautious manner, I would say. Uh, I was just thinking about it. My father just gave me sent me a few pictures of a magazine that I used to write in. It was an annual magazine when I was in class fifth, I guess. So, I had written about computers in that magazine, and all the spelling mistakes were retained in that magazine. I'd also, painted a picture of a flower, and it was a very bad picture. It had no symmetry, big petals and small petals, and it was really bad. I asked my father, why did you retain those, because my father was the editor of that magazine. All the articles, every submission had a lot of mistakes. He told me that it was not because I was lazy, it was because he wanted to retain that originality, right? So now, if you're asking a student to participate in an extempore essay competition or write or paint a picture, he can use DALL-E to paint a picture. He can use ChatGPT or Cloud to write an essay, which is which will look perfect. There will be no grammatical mistakes, there will be no spelling mistakes. So that originality is lost, right? And also, it doesn't matter if everyone has given different prompts and there are different versions of the essays. It's still written by an AI tool, right? It's still identical. You can still make out that it's written by an AI tool because all the content that is fed into it is the same. So I think that originality in terms of how, because that we build our own style when we write, and I have been writing for a decade now, professionally, and then I have built up on my own style because I wrote on my own. But if you're constantly referring back to these tools and they're doing your writing for you, your originality is lost. You do not have a voice of your own. That is a big concern. So when you're embracing AI, you have to understand that you have to carefully delegate tasks to AI rather than delegating the entire job to it.
And that's a great response. I think more being more strategic with it, and then rather than just
Absolutely.
willy-nilly. But I think overall good conversation. I think we can take a pause from speaking in a podcast manner and ask Smriti and